If anybody has questions as we are going on, then just drop them in the chat and we'll answer them as we go. I think this is a topic that a lot of people might have questions on. So if you have a question, there's no dumb questions. It just doesn't exist. If you have a question, then it's more than likely a question that someone else also has. They either don't want to speak up or they don't know how to ask it. So, um, please don't be shy. And this is a way for everybody to learn together. So, um, we'll get started. This is Pro Power Hour. We are going to teach you about how to set up flat rate pricing and how to do time and material pricing inside of Housecall Pro. And this is Phil. Phil is one of our onboarding specialists I was just telling you about, and he is extremely knowledgeable in the product. Um, and all right, let's get into it. Without further ado.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody. If this is your first time, welcome. Yep, as Shayna pointed out, I'm one of the senior specialists over here. I've been doing onboarding for a little over 4 years now. So I've seen the system grow quite a bit. Some of you have probably already seen me on some of the past sessions, but yeah, this session today, we were really thinking it would be a good idea because I've seen a lot of the new accounts come in where people are talking about how to do their pricing, and the system really is designed to accommodate a wide group of ways of doing this. The Probably 80% of the people that I've met in my time here typically do flat rate pricing, and flat rate pricing is taking your time or your labor and your materials, putting them together, and just giving one flat rate price. There is, I would say, about 20% of the people I do meet that do time and materials. So when we are looking at a job or looking at an invoice or an estimate, we're splitting those things up. So we're having our labor being shown as a line item, and we're showing all the materials that we use as a line item too. So that's just kind of the introduction of what it is we're going to talk about and what flat rate is versus what time and materials is. Um, as I was kind of looking through my resources, don't really have a slide deck for today. And I think just due to the nature of this discussion or of this topic, I think it would be better if it's more of a discussion. We do have a lot of questions that did come in over the week, so I've got a lot to answer there. But I'll just kind of talk about from my experience talking with other pros about how to set these things up in their system. And as Shayna said, if you have a question, don't hesitate to throw that in the chat because this time is to answer your questions. So I'm just going to go ahead and just simply show just in the account kind of how we do these two different things and how we set it up in the price book so that way we have an idea of how things are going to be moving in house call in accordance to these two types of pricing formats. And then I'll go ahead and open the floor to some questions. So going to hop right here into my account. So let's just start at the very basic of looking at a job or an estimate. So as I mentioned before, the system is really designed for both ways of pricing. I guess it really doesn't matter here which one. And so when we're looking at an estimate here, typically one of the first questions I get when we get new people coming onto the platform is the difference for services and materials. What goes in which particular section? So as I mentioned earlier, if you are a company that does flat rate, where you are putting your labor and your materials into one lump sum, typically I see most people put that into services. So for an example here, just general pest control. If I'm going to go ahead and say that, this is going to be $500, um, basically in here, we're telling the customer everything that's laid out within that service. So with flat rate, I would put something in here of like, this includes my technician coming out there. It's going to be, he's typically going to be out there for about an hour, maybe 2 hours. He's going to have all the materials and all of the repellents and pesticides that they need. All of that typically goes here into the description, and we just give them that one price. So that is generally what we see with flat rate pricing, and I am going to go into the price book to show you all how to set that up so that you also can just pick items right out of the price book and have all of this stuff already there for you. Now, the other way that I was mentioning how I've seen people do it is with time and materials. So if we're going to use that same scenario of having pest control come on out, typically what I see more people come in and do is they're going to say, okay, that's going to be the labor of one person, and they're roughly, I'm going to say maybe, maybe $120 an hour, and they're going to be out there for 2 hours. So that clearly shows the customer that they're paying for the labor of the one technician. And then down below in the materials, that's where they're going to put in, pesticide, uh, just kind of making stuff up here, $40. And
So,
then,
do you want to go through? I have a real somebody's actual account who has everything set up. It'd be a better example of just so it can show like a real account.
sure, if you wanna do that.
Yeah, I think we're really HVAC and plumbing electrical heavy in this particular group. And so this is an HVAC account, and I think that would be just super beneficial to see how it's actually set up in the price book versus versus in just like a testing account is just a little bit different. I can pull it up and do the screen share. Let me get a fresh tab. My sixth one today. I'll just like fill up all my browser windows with like 100 tabs and then get a new one.
Yeah.
Before I know it, I have way too many. Okay, I'm just pulling up my admin. Anthony Sewell. If anybody knows Anthony, he's freaking amazing and he's so helpful. Okay. I have his account. Let me share my screen. Okay. Do you want to go into back into just like an estimate, or do you want to go in the price book for
I
flat
mean,
rate?
we could go into the price book now. I was just kind of showing just on the estimate how these two things are typically divided, and typically how I see people do it on the fly. But this is kind of where I was going to get into is the next thing is really getting into the price book so you can set this up and not have to do everything manually. So this is actually a good little transition in here. If you want to pull up a particular service,
Okay.
I can certainly talk about it.
Okay, I hope this one has it set up. Okay, yeah. So here's I hope everybody can see this.
I would say really quickly, let's go ahead and cancel out of here because I want to show everybody where the switch is to turn on flat
Okay,
rate. And
for sure.
so yeah, we can just go back and yeah, let's go to our apps in the App Store.
Okay. 3 by 3 grid, App Store.
And you can just click all apps. So, so for anyone that is new to the system and you do flat rate, or maybe you've been with us for a while and are switching over to flat rate, there is a setting in the system at no additional charge. Is if you scroll down, I know it's all in alphabetical. There's one for flat rate pricing right there. If you want to go ahead and click on there, there's the little activating switch right there. If you turn it off, your price book will be set up for flat rate pricing. You could still do time and materials if you wanted. But when we flip it on, we now have the capabilities for what Shayna was just showing. So now we can go back to the price book.
Okay, I see. So that will not show up inside of your account until it is toggled on.
That is correct.
So you might be using your Housecall Pro account for like years and years and not even know that's there.
Hmm.
I bet you see that all the time.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so now that everybody on here is privy, flat rate pricing exists. I don't know why that keeps popping up. Okay. I think I was in this one. Okay.
Sure. So yeah, what that does turn on is that now you have the ability to add labor rates and add materials to each of your services. So that way, again, as we've been discussing, is how you can set up your flat rate services. So actually, sorry, Shayna, one more time, let's cancel out of here because we're going to show where you set up, where you put in your labor rates. So it's going to be here in your price book settings up here at the top.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And when you have flat rate turned on, you will then see the option for labor rates. So let's go.
Those can hide up here. I've
Mhm.
been steady looking for all these little tabs that used to be under here.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, they keep moving it around on us, but we just adapt. So yeah, once we get into here into labor rates, as you can see here, we have a spot for our hourly price and our hourly cost. Hourly price is always what you are charging your customer. Your hourly cost is what your break even is for that hour. So any costs, any overhead, you'll want to put it in there. It's not necessarily required, but it is encouraged that you do have accurate numbers in here so that, again, the system can accurately give you the information in your reporting.
What does this do? Default flat rate. What does that mean?
So that's really just setting up which one that it's more important if you're using the Profit Rhino add-on with us because
Oh,
that tells the system that for the Profit Rhino price book which labor rate that you're going to use. Um,
okay.
that's pretty much the main use of it. But because we have three different labor rates in here, um, now when we go to that service, we'll be able to pick which one. So as I've seen in the past, a lot of people say like, well, I have a journeyman labor rate, I have an apprentice labor rate, I have a lead technician rate. You can still put all of that in here. Actually, this is the place to put it in. So before we go back to the service, there's just one other thing I want to mention is if we go over to materials, we do have this material markups feature, and this is also very useful if you are using flat rate. You could also use it for time and materials, but basically what it does is it's telling the system that any of our materials that we put into the system that are between in the first markup, between a penny and $50, we're going to mark it up 150% so that you can get 60% profit. Question I always get is where do we get these numbers? I've always been told that this is very industry standard. So a lot of people tend to use what we provide them, but I understand I've talked to people where they have their own markups. Um, I would, I'm not going to make you go away from anything that you are currently doing, but I would recommend these because some people don't think about it in the sense of like, I've talked to people that say, I just have a 30% markup. Yeah, you could do that, but like if you're really going to your vendor to get anything between a penny and $50, do you really want to just get 30% profit on that? Like you want to make a little bit more money for something so minuscule. But it's really for those bigger pieces of equipment that will have it listed out for like anything over $500 or up to $1,000. Those are typically about 30% because that's obviously more cost to you.
Yeah, you're not gonna mark the big stuff up as much typically because then it's gonna be really expensive and no one's gonna buy it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, now we can go back to the item in the price book.
Okay. I would love to see one that has the rates set up. Maybe one of these does that has the task code. No. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Well, it's fine for the example.
yeah, I was going to say is so now what we can do is right here where it says add our labor rate, you can go ahead and hit plus, and we can start to put in the one that that select the one that we made within our labor rates list there. And as you can see, it already populates our cost and our price, and it gives us an opportunity to put in how many hours this typically takes our technicians. So that way, again, it's already accumulating what that price is going to be. So now that we have our labor rate in, now we can come down to materials in this section. And this is where we can go ahead and start to add the materials from our price book and put them in this section. So if you want to put maybe one or two in there, and we won't save it since this is a real example. But now that we have our materials in there, we have our labor in there. If we come on up to our upper right section over here and hit calculate
Uh,
flat rate price, there you go. So now it's going to give us the breakdown of our labor and our materials.
I actually am learning something today.
Awesome. Yeah, let's just keep it at each.
Okay.
So just really wanted to point out here is that now in the price book, we can now see that breakdown of our labor and our materials. Customer never sees any of this information. Our technicians don't see it unless we give them permission to, but really all the customer's going to see is that price at the end of the day. Now,
And do you know off the top of your head what permissions for the tech so they don't see this? Price and
uh,
material mater
yeah,
permission?
it would be take payments and seeing prices.
Okay.
And then the other one I would just be sure about is updating company account info.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, but I would say 99% of technicians I've come across do not have that one on because we obviously don't want them going in there and messing with the account. But yeah. So what I do tell people is that another thing is if you have a very like designed price book or like kind of the example of using our Profit Rhino price book is even though if we are doing flat rate pricing and we say that this particular service is going to cost $364 at the estimate or invoice level, you do have the ability to change the pricing that is there. So maybe if you bought a little like a piece of equipment that's a little bit more expensive, instead of having to come back into the price book and like have to do this all over again, you could just easily change it right on the estimate or on the invoice. But the idea is that we want to be consistent with what's in our price book.
And we're gonna go and do you want to show what this looks like on when we add it to a job?
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to go ahead and save it. And
Okay.
let's see, that's commercial diagnostic service. All right, so then yeah, let's go ahead and add it to a job. Actually, before you do that, can we go back? Because I think was it in this tab? Yeah, let's go back to that one really quick. Okay, good. I just want to make sure we're tracking materials on jobs. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Let's go back to the job
Yeah,
or to a
that's a
job.
really big call out right there. That little toggle so that you can actually see the list of materials that are associated with that flat rate job. So it's not just one line item. Um, okay, let's make a job. Okay. Skip. Okay, so I'm gonna add, what was it? Commercial diagnostic service. Okay, saved.
Okay, so now if we open up our job inputs, notice now that we are able to track all those materials so that we can look at our job costing report, which would be right underneath it. And then that way we can see our breakdown of our costs and our revenue. Now we do have expected costs. I'm not going to go too far in the weeds of job costing because we've done that on a previous session, and I'm sure we will revisit another time. But wanted to point out is if you are a flat rate business, the expected costs are reflecting what it is you put in your price book. So we said that it was this labor rate. It typically takes these 2 hours, and these two materials are the ones that are needed. So this is our expected outcome right here. But once we start putting in real information, that's where we're going to get our actual costs. So that way already we can see that we're already making a huge profit on this job. But
Awesome.
yeah, and so I think that's pretty much rounds out flat rate pricing. But then,
So
sorry,
I
go
do
ahead.
have a question. The materials will not show up under actual materials, only under job inputs, and they have to show up under job inputs. With this toggled, you can see those materials on the job if you are using flat rate.
Right. Because again, the idea there with flat rate is we just want to give the customer like here's the service of what we're doing, here's the price. We don't want to give them the printout of all the materials.
Okay, got it.
So then on the flip side, for time and materials, it's we would want those items not to be in the job input sections, but actually listed as material line items because we're telling the customer these were the materials were used, and the customer is essentially paying for them unless, you've worked some kind of deal with them where we at least just want to list them so they can see what we used, but maybe they're not paying for them or paying, a percentage of it.
So materials would be just adding the materials and then they would be tracking time, or they say, hey, it's going to take about, or it took 2 hours, and they would just add it here to the service.
So what I typically see people do is, as I was kind of putting in on my side, is that they put labor as the service, and so they just put labor, typically in the unit price, $125 an hour, $180 an hour, whatever it is, and then in the quantity, that's where the technician will put in how many hours that they spent there.
I see. So if the price was, I don't know, $50 an hour, it would just be, okay, these are AC repair services, quantity three, or what have you, whatever it is. And then that would be, okay, here's the cost, but that's down here, the price the customer would pay. Maybe it's not saving. Yeah. Okay, this. Total. Got it.
Cool.
Let's check for any questions of where everybody's at so far.
Yeah, I saw a couple come through. So let's see. I'll answer the ones I saw come in the chat first. Um, on Profit Rhino, does it input just like flat rate? So Patricia, the answer to that is yes. Profit Rhino is a flat rate book. Typically, most people that have flat rate use it. I have seen a small percentage of people use it for time and materials, but that's not necessarily what it's intended for, but it can be used that way. But yes, everything you saw for flat rate, if you use Profit Rhino, it's going to look just like that.
It's just gonna be all done for you because the putting the price book together is it's a really huge lift. It's very labor intensive work.
Yeah. And for Tom, how do you calculate materials markup? Um, I mean, if you're asking where we got ours, I did mention that we find it just from industry standard based on what we get from all of the vendors, and just the data we pull from a lot of the pros that use our system. But to calculate your own, that's kind of something that you might want to discuss with somebody either within our Facebook community, or we do have our business coaching to get you the right markups for your materials. But as Shana and I really discussed, typically for your smaller costing items, we would want a higher markup. And then for our big ticket items, we want a lower markup.
And that really depends on where you're located, what industry you're in, the types of things that you're selling. I don't know if you're using AI, but you could probably ask and figure it out on, we have all kinds of calculators on the website too. Uh, if you need more help with that, Tom, send me a message on Facebook and I'm sure I can connect you with somebody who can help you.
Yeah, most definitely. And that's a good point. Yeah, if for the people using AI, you could probably type something in like, give me some industry standard material markups for
Yeah. I'm in this
plumbing
industry.
industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the location. And then the other thing I wanted to call out was the what that looks like, what that expected cost looks like in when you're doing flat rate pricing. So see this right here under job costing, expected costs, and then there's another one for filtering out. I think it's on the next screen. Correct me if I'm wrong. So
Um,
here's expected cost. That's
right.
that's what it looks like. That jargon I think that not everybody is familiar with. Um and then you could pull it here as well. Expected. I don't see it on this one, probably because this is the expected.
Yeah, I would say go back to yeah, go back to here and let's go to edit columns here. Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
So there's our expected costs, our expected profit, our expected hours, and then we can have here our total cost, total hours on job, um, and job total.
Okay. And before you had hopped on, I was telling everyone if you feel like you need help with like one-on-one questions, and even if it's not on job costing or doing flat rate pricing or anything that we've covered today, or you need more help after this, then if you're on the Max account, that you can go into everybody should have that. It'll pull up this right side rail, and then it doesn't show it because we're impersonating the account. But on the right side of the AI team, you can open up the chat, which looks like this. Scroll down, and this right here needs some coaching. Schedule time with your key account success team, and you can schedule time through the blue chat bubble for anybody on your team.
Yeah, and that sends you over to my team. We do have a calculator on deck. So if you ever are looking to get more granular with your numbers, I would recommend setting up a support call. And for that call, just be sure you have all your book, your numbers, information in front of you, because yeah, we asked quite a bit, a couple of questions. But yeah, that's definitely a good call out. But we do have some questions prepared, so I think we should probably get into those.
Yes.
Just because I know we got a lot of them here, and also
Okay.
I feel like we kind of addressed everything of the two pricings. But first one from TJ: what is the best way to create a material price book? Is there a pre-made price book for electrical items, or does everybody input by hand? Also, after the price book is created, what is the best way to keep the prices current? Any integrations with this? Okay, so uh, TJ, for the material price book, um, I mean, I always tell everybody is the price book is always what you make of it. Um, so if you want it to be very granular and very detailed, I tend to see a lot of people will go in there, and he's talking more about materials. So for materials, it's really just adding the items. So if you want to get granular about, I use a specific brand and I use a specific model, like all of that, you're going to most likely want to use or most likely build your price book out yourself. There is a quick way of doing it is you can go to your price book settings and you can export the material price book. That's going to send you a spreadsheet with all of the columns in place that you don't want to touch. What you want to do is take your information and put them in the right columns because those columns will coincide when you upload the book so that your price book is uploaded correctly into Housecall. So that is the quickest, and that is my suggestion when it comes to creating a price book. But the other side to his question is asking about a pre-made price book. The only one we have to offer at this time is the Profit Rhino price book. Um, they do have Profit Rhino's price book and our price book do have pros and cons to each side. And we did do a Profit Rhino session, I want to say like 2 months ago, where I went in depth on the differences between these two. So if you're interested in Profit Rhino and the differences, I recommend checking that session out. But that pretty much answers both of those questions. Um, Ed, has anyone had any luck doing something similar with the big boys, Lowe's, Home Depot? Is there a way to get electrical material pricing from them? or maybe a historical purchase. Okay, so Ed, I'm not entirely sure of how this process goes, but I have talked to a lot of accounts, and they have told me that they have been able to go to their vendors and ask for a CSV file of the materials that they get. I'm not sure if it's Home Depot or Lowe's, unless you have like a specific account with them where they can pull up like your history and your most and the items that you buy mostly. But I have heard from, as I mentioned, a lot of pros that have told me that they can go to their vendor and get a list of the materials they usually get from them. And then you would just simply upload them to your price book right here, like I explained.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Next one from Lacey. Does anyone have any insight on commission percentages and the best way to go about commissions? Um, I can answer that. That's not necessarily what we were talking about today, but for that, Lacey, um, what you would want to do is you can go to Teams and Permissions, and under Teams and Permissions, there is a commissions section. And that is where you can go ahead and add what the percentage is for the commissions. I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago, we did a whole session on commissions. So, Lacey, I would recommend checking out that session because I did go over this in depth. But to quickly answer your question, it's in teams and permissions. We go ahead and put in the percentage. And then when you're on each job, you want to say that this particular person is going to get this commission on this job.
The other ones I see here are not necessarily price, like setting up pricing related, and everything else is just kind of trying to get opinions on an insight on what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, I see that too. I mean, we can go through a couple of these. I do see quite a few kind of repeats here, but
Yeah.
just so that we can say we covered a couple of them. How often do you guys update your price book? We're a plumbing company. Okay, so with our price, if you're just using Housecall Pro's price book, we don't do any updates. Because we basically give you the price. You build your price book in our system, so it's really on you to do the updates. However, if you do use the Profit Rhino price book that we offer, that does update itself 4 times a year.
And I'm curious for just anybody watching this, how often are you going in there and updating your prices and your price book? Yeah, that question was asked a couple of times actually. And then I see this one at the bottom. Is there a reason HCP does profit percentage rather than gross margin? But if you're job costing, why not at least have the option to calculate gross margin? I'm not even sure what that means.
Yeah, I think I kind of understand it, but really, Jesse, I don't have an answer for why it does it that way. It's just kind of the way that it's designed. Um, we could certainly try and figure out a better answer for that, but just from my seat, it's just kind of it is what it is, and that's just how it's designed. So another one of how often do we update? Does anyone have any insight on commission percentages? So that was another one. That was the same one from Lacey. We are changing our field tech pay structure to percentage based off of income for each job. So Chris, that one, I would recommend taking a look at the commissions session we did because that basically explains the whole thing to your answer about how to do the pay structure off a percentage off of the income. Here's one from Juan. How are you guys tracking technician performance on HCP? Is there a way to track how many humidifiers a technician has sold? Um, or if a part is needed to be ordered. Okay, that's a fair question that we can dive into a little bit.
Okay.
Um, so tracking technician performance in house call, there's kind of a couple of different ways. One of them is that we do have the time tracking. So that is where I'm sure most people are familiar with is when we're on a job and we hit start on the job, we start tracking how much time is being spent on the job. So that's at least time performance. Example to track how many humidifiers a technician has sold is for each particular line item, there's going to be this sold by box. Same thing in materials. We can have a spot of who sold it. So if I go ahead and say that I sold a particular material, now when I go into reporting, we have on-job sales by employee. So that's where you can pull the report over to see over a period of time how many times a technician sold a particular piece of equipment, but they do have to mark that they sold it. We're not going to know just simply because they were assigned to the job that they sold it. They need to tell the system that they sold it. Then they will show up on this report. Um, so that's kind of the answer to your question. And if to take it one step further, if you're curious on how many were sold, that's where our materials on jobs report comes into play because that's essentially a material tracking so that we can track how many times a material has been used over a period of time. Um, and I think I saw one other question, but it might have been somebody else's
Oh,
question.
so Ryan's got a really good question.
Hmm.
Um, so if you have recurring jobs, okay? So imagine that these are all recurring jobs, they're already set up, but if you increase the price of something across the board in the price book, then how would that affect the jobs, the recurring jobs? Can you do it that way?
That is a good question. I've never actually tested that. So I mean, we could try and test that together. Let's see if we can do it quickly. Because I would assume that my assumption is that we've by setting up a reoccurring job, we've already set up that this job is set within these particular parameters. So if we make increases to the price book, those jobs are already going to be set. That's just me thinking out loud and understanding how the system works, but I just haven't tested that.
But if you increase so say they're every Tuesday, if you increase that job this next coming Tuesday, every Tuesday after that, you can apply it to all the following jobs. So it can be that job or all of the jobs in your recurring series. So if you're trying to upgrade them, like up the price, for more than one by one, then you could do it like that. And if for whatever reason it doesn't work, you can, it's going to send the customer a bunch of notifications of you have a scheduled job. So I was going to say you could just recreate the job and not notify the customer. That's another way to do that.
This one's for 150. This one's also for 155. Okay, so we have our recurring job with our service listed at 155. So now if I go into my price book, AC service call, yeah, 150. Okay. So now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change the price. Maybe the quickest way would be to be. Okay, so yeah, now that's more expensive. So now I'm going to save it. Yep, that's exactly what I thought. So it does. So once we make that change, because we've already said in the system that here's the job, here's the item, and it's listed at this price when we scheduled it, it doesn't make the change. But now if I add it to a new job, it's going to reflect that new $200 price.
Oh, so it won't go retroactively and update already created jobs.
That is correct.
So, Larry, all of the Pro Power Hour recordings are either on the Facebook group, you can find them on YouTube, you can also find them in the help center. It's help.housecallpro.com, and all the new ones are at the bottom. Like it's a long list, we just put them at the bottom each time. So that's where you can find the previous recordings of each episode. There are many. I think this is 78, episode 78. And
Yeah.
then Ray has a question. Is there a way for an employee to track their sales throughout the month? And pretty sure that you
Um,
can't unless you give them access to uh like the web. So they would need to have, if they're a
They'd have
tech,
to be an
yeah,
office
they can
staff.
only access the app. That it doesn't matter that level of employee, they can't access the web. So you would have to give them office staff, then they could log in and they would have to have access to reporting. So I don't know if you want to give them that sort of access.
Right.
But yes, they could. It just they could see other stuff too. What a lot of people do is they'll have these like wherever their office is, they'll just have like a big TV up and this is how the company is doing for the day. This is how much we've made, or this is how our sales are. This is how many jobs we've booked through the day, the month, the week. So if you want to give them visibility, you could either send it to them, screenshot, or just have it up regularly or do like a meeting. But we
Yeah.
are working on that, like a dashboard for employees to be able to see like a leaderboard of how they're doing and their stats and their KPIs and all that stuff.
Yeah. All right. As I was kind of going through, I think there's maybe like two more in here we should address. It looks like that a lot of these were just kind of doubled and tripled up, but I see one from Chris. What is the best place to present multiple options? Um, for that, Chris, I know we did a session on this one before. It's going to be actually under estimate options. So if you look at I think we did a session on estimates. If not, we did one just straight up on office staff training as well as mobile app training, where I showed how to do this. It's the options that are on estimates. That's how you can create your good, better, bests or your multiple options. Um, let's see. And then the other one I saw how to calculate my mileage from an HCP report. So Patrick, for that one, you're going to actually want to look into our advanced tracking with the Force Fleet from Mojo, because House Call itself isn't able to pull this report, but with that integration, it has a little device that you stick into the truck and it will give you a mileage report. Um, and
Hmm.
then
Tom has a question too. How would you keep track of a selling tech and installing tech on the same humidifier system, etc.? So we have a new commission structure that's coming out that will make this easier, but currently you have the sold by. You can select sold by on each item. Can you scroll down just a tiny bit? Yes. Do you see this right here? It says sold by, that's the selling tech. And then the commissions would go to whoever's doing the job. But with the sold by, it doesn't allow you to do like it only gives you one sold by. That's it. There's not like a percentage there.
right.
But you'll have more flexibility with the new commissions after quarter one, hopefully.
Yeah. So yeah. So it's sold by, and if we want to say, Luke went out there and did it, now we can see that just Luke is getting the commissions. If I need to get the commissions too, I can go ahead and add myself as well. So now we have commissions for both of us. And as of right now, we can make adjustments just on the amount. But as Shayna said, we're about to release some improvements to this.
Yeah, it's way better. It's so much better.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming for that. But yeah, out of all the other questions I saw in there, it was just kind of a lot of doubling up. So I think I answered all of those. And I know we got about 10 minutes left. So any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, I will let Shayna close us out.
And also, if you guys want us to cover a specific topic, then please let me know. Just send me a DM on Facebook and we will plan a pro power hour so that we can make sure you have all your questions answered. And don't forget what I showed you about the schedule coaching so that you can get that training that you need. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you guys for office hours on Friday. For Super Pros, it's 1 p.m. Eastern, and for everybody else in the main Housecall Pros group, it's going to be at 2 o'clock. You can find the link in the group under the events. Have a good night, guys. See ya.
Later.